So welcome back to the Lifeline Podcast. What's happening? Been a little minute, been a short little minute, but we back at it with my brother, Shadon Monestine. Appreciate you coming.
Absolutely.
This man right here is doing a lot of big things, especially in the community, which is amazing to me. I'm super, super proud of him. Matter of fact, the whole family's proud of you. The whole family's proud of him. He is a officer. Matter of fact, I can't even explain exactly what you do, to be honest with you, because I really don't know what you do. I just know that you work for the NYPD, but I don't really know what you do. But you can really just introduce yourself and really kind of put in the full perspective what you do. You know what I'm saying? Like, what exactly is your job description?
We do, well, first off, thank you for having me.
Yeah,
again.
no doubt, for sure.
Privilege. Now, what we do, I work under the Community Affairs Unit.
Okay.
So we just interact, of course, with the community. Elected officials, of course, with the schools and youth, pretty much everything you would find in the community. We're either a liaison between the NYPD and the community, whether it's like the small businesses, the large scale businesses, pretty much whatever you can find in the community, we're the liaisons between them and the NYPD.
But more specifically, like, I know right now that you're doing some amazing things with the kids in the community. I've been watching it for an extended period of time. Actually, in another couple of weeks, we're going to be out there, myself and my business partner. We're going to actually go out there and do some things with the youth. Our producer has gone out there and done some things at Top 5 Barbershop in Long Island City. But you're doing some amazing things with the youth. So right now, kind of what is the plan right now for the youth in that community? And it's not just limited to Long Island City, right? It's anywhere.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
So we cover Queens North. So we cover all communities within Queens North. So ranging from your 112 precinct, which is in Forest Hills, we're going all the way to 108 precinct, Long Island City,
Right.
114 Astoria, 115 Jackson Heights, 104 Maspeth. So all those areas, and we're getting youth from those areas, ages from 14 to about 21, and they're all coming from different communities, different neighborhoods, and we're bringing them under one roof. And we're just trying to get them acclimated together and having them, learn about each other.
So the main thing pretty much is trying to get them off the street, because I know there's a lot of government programs and things of that nature that has been transitioned away from actually your mic, bro. Your mic, you gotta fix your mic, bro. You gotta fix the mic up a little bit. It's all good. Don't worry about it. You new to this. Don't worry about it. I'm true to this, so it's all good. So you gotta put the mic up a little bit. But I know that you're definitely trying to get the youth back into or back off of the street. You're trying to have them, because there's a lot of government programs that have been shut down. So to get them back and acclimated with being productive citizens in society, you guys are doing an excellent job. But more, let's just get into it, because I was actually had a conversation with some people concerning, I'm not gonna say some people, but a couple of friends of mine, and they're talking about like privilege, and I don't want to misconstrue exactly what they were saying, but from my personal perspective, talking about privilege. Now, the way we grew up and the way we are right now, it's easy for people to say or look at us and say, "Oh, you got your wife, you got your son, you got your home, you drive a nice car, you have a great career, your wife has a great career," and people can easily see that and just automatically determine like there is no struggle. Like, what problems can you possibly have with all of those things going right in your life? What problems can you possibly have from the perspective that you got both of your parents? You grew up in a 2-parent household. Like, you don't know real struggle because of that. And with that, it for me personally, it kind of took it as like, wow, like, I still have a story. I still have struggles even with, quote unquote, having a certain level of privilege at this particular juncture. Have you ever had to deal with that where you kind of was judged a little bit, where it was like, oh, you got both of your parents, or your life is perfect, or you got everything going for you. Like you shouldn't be sad, or you don't know what I'm personally doing. Like you can't identify with certain things.
I would say yes, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, if you come from a two-parent dynamic in the family, in the household,
Right.
there's always going to be some sort of struggle. Always
Right,
going to
right.
be some sort of misunderstanding. There's always even growing up with older siblings. You still have that in the back of your head as far as following their footsteps,
Right.
or not being good enough, or not being, a carbon copy.
Right,
You know, it's all those things that you battle in your mental.
Yo, that's
as
so
well.
crazy, and I'm not even gonna cut you up. I'm not gonna cut you. We're gonna get right back into it. That's so crazy that you said that. That I didn't even think about that. Like subconsciously, I never really thought about the fact that we both have older brothers and sisters, and they have done things in their lives, and as we're coming up, we don't want to either be a carbon copy of it, or we don't want to mess up so bad that we give the family a bad name.
Right,
That's another issue right there that people don't understand. Like there's pressures to live up to a last name, and like you can't be a failure. Your last name is Monestine, or you can't do certain things because your last name is Monestine. So it's like those things are real. You know what I'm saying? And I never even, and it's crazy how you said, you can go back to what you were saying, but I never even, thought about that.
Yeah,
Like that kind of struggle.
It's 100% true, because even growing up with us, the majority of us went to the same elementary school.
Elementary school, yeah. Junior high
Same
school.
junior high school. Shout out junior high school 72.
72. PS 80. Holla.
PS 80.
What's up? 140.
140.
Yeah.
Some of us transitioned to Andrew Jackson.
Right.
transitioned
Springfield,
Hillcrest.
Gardens, yeah, Hillcrest.
So it was
Cardozo,
all,
yeah.
and growing up in those schools, elementary, junior high school, teachers always, there go another Monestine.
Right,
That's another
right.
Monestine. Oh, your brother was like this. Your brother was doing this. Your brother was going to class. He wasn't.
Right.
It was always,
right. There's always something.
it was always somebody watching. It was always eyes, and they would compare you to each other, and just growing up with that in the back of your head, and that constantly plays in your subconscious.
Right.
You don't want to mess things up.
Right.
And you do want to create your own lane, but at the same time, you don't want to become a carbon copy or
Right.
things of that nature. So,
And it's pressure because of your parents too. Like,
Right,
Our
right,
parents are both in ministry for an extended period of time.
right.
Super nice people. Shout out to my mom, Dr. Elaine Monestine. Shout out to my dad, Overseer Gabless Monestine. They're tremendous people, like giving people, loving people.
Sure.
But even with that, it's like the pressure of trying to maintain a certain image because you're their child. Even like right now, we dress the way we dress, and our dad suit and tie all the time. So it's like you're trying to carve your own path, but still yet trying to quote unquote embarrass the family, and people have a certain expectation of you, and it's like you got all of these pressures, even in ministry, that if you don't become a preacher or a singer and you just veer off and do something completely different, it's like you're going against the grain. So talk to me about, real quick, and I'm gonna jump into about the pressures of just growing up in church and having all eyes on you. Like pastors' kids have a lot of pressure on them. And I know a lot of people think like, oh, that's not real issues. Like you didn't have to come home to a situation where dad was on drugs and mom was on drugs or something like that. And everybody has, that's the real issue. That's the real problem. And those things should never be taken lightly. But that doesn't negate the fact that everyone has a unique pressure that is design, or that is around them as a person, tailor-made to them as a person. So, neither one could be negated. So tell me about like your pressures growing up, pastor son ministry, like
Pressures. Oh man.
Yeah.
Pressures. We're just gonna start with relationships. Let's just
Right.
start with that.
Yeah.
That's a big relationships.
Yeah.
See, we go with the scripture. Of course, we live by the scriptures. He who finds the wife finds a good thing. Find you went out there and we looked.
Right,
You know,
right.
we looked.
That's a fact. That's a fact.
We looked and we tried to bring them in.
Right, that's a fact. Mostly brought them in.
Brought them in.
Right,
Brought them
we
in.
mostly tried to
Brought
bring
them
them in. That's a fact.
And sometimes it felt as though it was a lost cause. You know, it felt like your work was in vain.
Right.
But at the same time, you still wanted to be obedient to the word, but at the same time, you desired something else.
Right, but you know to be a fact. You know to be honest. You know to be honest. Like to be real. Like even though we went out there and like. First of all, when we went out there, we looked for something that we liked personally. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And with the hopes to bring them in for them to get saved, so that we could, further on in the relationship, probably marry that person. So the way we went about it as youngsters was just all wrong to begin with. Like it was all wrong to begin with. But you like what you like. You know what I'm saying? So we have an affinity for certain things, and so bringing them in, it's like. Yo, the motive got to be right because it's like, all right, I want you to be saved and get to know Christ so that we can do what we got to do instead of just like, okay, you have your, relationship with God, develop it, and however God leads you, that's what you got to do. But I ain't not to cut you off. Go ahead, my fault.
No, I was just saying, like, of course, and being pastors' sons and children. Of course, you got to bring them into the church, bring them into the ministry, and allow them to see firsthand, okay, this is what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah.
And you're going to make that determination whether or not, you believe this gospel, you believe what's being said, you believe in the scriptures and whatnot. So, I mean, after that's all done and said, and of course, they have to meet the parents. You have to meet your pastor.
Yeah.
Just to, see where they're headed. And at the same time, you're dealing with that dynamic. She's not only your pastor, they're not only your pastor or your leaders, they're also your parents.
Yeah,
so that's a double,
it's a double-edged sword right there.
So that's another thing.
That's a pressure, and that's another pressure that people understand. Like when you bring a female into your space, she's not just y'all. You just don't have to worry about y'all relationship. Like she has to also, in a way, kind of fit a certain mold unfairly, sometimes unfairly, because there's so many eyes watching, and it's like, oh, you see Dr. Monestine's son dating that girl, and she ain't really saved, or she don't really know Jesus, and she ain't good for his ministry, or she ain't good, like she don't fit the mold of the prototypical future first lady or the future whatever, and that's a pressure. Get a certain job is a pressure. All of these things are a pressure that a lot of people don't like to talk about, but us as pastors' kids, we know all too well about it because we've dealt with it our whole lives. Our whole lives have been under a microscope. From the individuals in the church, outside of the church, maintaining a certain standard, out on the street, wherever you are, it's like there has always been a microscope, and we don't talk about the trauma of being under a microscope, where sometimes even in our decision making, we don't always have the freedom just to make decisions without thinking about how it affects other things. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, I can't date this girl because of this situation, this, that, and the third, because there are other key components and other factors that play into us just getting, in a relationship or even talking to her. Like, you don't want to put her through the ringer of having to be judged by all of these people. And I remember when me and Whitney started dating, and there was people that was telling me like, yo, she's bad for your ministry. Dead serious. I was like, no, that's not a good fit. Like, I don't see how she could possibly be good for your ministry. While other people can just date and have a good time, they not even worrying about if we compatible as people. You worrying about if she's good for ministry. Like, that don't make sense. And I'm glad I didn't listen to certain people that said that she wasn't good for me. Then I wouldn't be happy in the relationship that I am today. So I know, you was talking about relationship pressure. Is there anything that you would have did differently? Like from before? Because I know there's a lot of things I would have did differently. But
differently. I think I tried to do things differently while I was while I was in certain relationships. I believe we do go through different, whether it be relationships or situations in your life.
Right.
Everything is like a learning experience, and every time I ended one relationship, I knew what not to do in the next one. So everything was more so like a learning experience, and after a while, I started to see certain things that I had to adjust, certain things that I couldn't do, couldn't say, and then it began to work out, better in my favor.
But in totality, it's like Shadon, 18 years old, is different from Shadon, 25 years old. So they're really, very rarely can you walk away from a relationship without there being some contention or some misunderstanding. Someone's gonna be hurt. You know what I'm saying? Unless you both come to the conclusion, okay, this is not working.
Right.
We're gonna go our separate ways. But somebody's gonna be hurt, regardless of how much of a gentleman you are, how nice you are, how well things end. Was about to end.
Right.
Someone is gonna be hurt. So let's deal with that real quick. Like, how do you deal with exes? Like, how do you deal, especially in church?
Yeah.
Like, how do you deal with exes in church? That's the crazy thing. Like, because there's no real education on how we deal with exes in church, we deal with it like how we deal with the world. So it's like, I cut you off of social media, I delete your number, I delete your message thread. If I see you in the street, I walk right past you. It's like we still supposed to be the body of Christ. We still supposed to show the love of God.
Right.
But how do you deal with exes now? But because there's no real education on how you deal with an ex, we use the world's model for it. So how do we deal with exes as a man of God? Because let's be honest, you got exes, I got a bunch of exes. Some of my exes probably even gonna be watching this. So it may come off as shade to some of y'all when it really isn't. But they're exes, you know what I'm saying? And like I said before, there's no blueprint on how to deal with an ex as a man of God or a woman of God. So how would you deal with an ex as a man of God?
Oh man,
that's a tough question because there's really no blueprint.
There really isn't.
There really isn't.
There really isn't. And I hate to say it, but that's the way I did it. that's exactly why I did it. Social media, cut off. Message thread, cut off.
Cut it off.
And because that was the only way I knew.
Right.
That was I can't do something that you can't perform something that you don't know.
Right.
And that's the only way I knew. I'm like, okay. The best way for me to do it is to separate myself. So with that being said, I just deleted social media, deleted the message thread, deleted text message, stuff like that, phone numbers, all that. And that's how I kind of.
But is that a healthy way about going about doing it? Because it's like, like I said before, there is no model for it. So it's like, okay, we go our separate ways. We attend the same church, or we're in the same denomination, wherever it may be, same organization. And I still got to see you.
Right.
I still got to show the love of God to you. I still got to say, hey, I'm praying for you. But it's like a weird dynamic now because, you guys had a relationship. So it's like, it's not the same.
Yeah.
My perspective is handle it the way God would design us to handle it. At the end of the day, there's still people, there's still souls, there's still people that, Christ died for. Now, if we reach a certain level of maturity, where we can say, okay, we didn't work out, because let's just be honest. Some things just aren't going to work out.
Right.
Some jobs is not for us. It's not going to work out. There's some things that we don't like to eat. Does it make it bad? No, we just don't. It's not our cup of tea. It's just some relationships that's just not going to work out. And we both have to be mature enough to say, hey, it didn't work out. Maybe I'm not the guy for you, but I know God got another person for you, another guy for you.
Right.
Or you may, she may not be the girl for you or whatever it may be, but there's another guy for her. And when we come to the conclusion that we just can be mature to say, okay, like you say, he who finds a wife findeth a good thing. The thing about finding is that you have to look. And sometimes when you look, you come across things that you think initially when you first start that is going to lead to something.
Right.
And life takes you in weird directions that you can't tell the future. So sometimes it's just the fact that this is just not God's plan for us, and we just got to move on, and it's okay. But the problem is that if you find somebody first, it's like, you know what I'm saying? That's the problem. When you find somebody first, and that person is still going through the old messages and old pictures, that's when it becomes a problem. But I think maturity is how you deal with exes. Sure. Maturity, walking away, and I mean, even like you said, sometimes you got to break the communication because it brings up old feelings and trying to bring up hope. Like, oh, we talking now. Maybe there's a hope of us getting back together.
Right.
Nah,
and that's what worked for me.
Right.
Breaking communication was it may not have worked for the other individual. It may not have been the best plan for them to get better. But for me, it worked out for me because that's naturally I'm an introvert, so I can pull away from certain things and certain people
more easily,
and then not really feel any hurt about it. You know.
So even with that, like you said, you being an introvert, and there's introverts, there's extroverts, and for you being an introvert, and your wife being she's more of an extrovert, right? Yeah, she's more of a outgoing, talkative person. How did you adjust to that? Being with somebody that's an extrovert, like how did you navigate that dynamic? Because what we tend to do is try to make people just like us.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, why can't you just be quiet? Like, why can't you just relax like me? Just like take it easy.
Right.
But that's not the person that God made them to be.
Yeah.
So if we do that, we take away that uniqueness that God placed inside them. So how do you navigate with allowing them, not them, but allowing your wife just to be who she is in the way that God made her?
I would say, like, can I put it? Everything that I'm not, she is.
Okay.
So, and it's funny how God works, and what actually happened before I actually got married. I literally wrote down everything that I wanted or looked for in a wife. I wrote it down, and I had it laminated. Right, so that way I could never. I really did. To this day,
where is it?
I don't know where it's at right now.
He never told us this.
I'll tell you right now.
I'm gonna tell you something. Something about the Lifeline Podcast, man. This is secrets just fall out. He said he laminated a list.
I laminated it. Had laminated. To this day, it's still laminated. I don't know where it is right now, but I took a picture of it. Funny. So I have everything. I had to list everything.
Go ahead.
Everything I desired in a wife, in a mate. I wrote everything down. Everything down to the T. Spiritual gifts, and it was in categories: spiritual and physical. Okay. 2 categories. And I wrote everything down. I think it's like a list of 1 through 5. And like I said, everything that I'm not, she is. So if I'm to myself, quiet in a corner, something like that, she'll come and be loud and want to talk and all this other thing, which is fine. Which is fine. It's just perfect for me. It's perfect for me. But I don't think I would be able to survive as a husband or be the husband that I am or be compatible with her if I was just as loud or just as rambunctious. So I don't think I would be, we probably wouldn't be compatible.
Y'all wouldn't balance one another.
It wouldn't balance out. It wouldn't balance out. So that's what I love about our relationship. That's what makes us, a cohesive unit is that she can do everything that I can do, but at the same time, I can do things that she, can fall short in certain areas. So it works out. It meshes, perfectly together.
So basically, just like you stated, you just leave space for them to be who they are.
Right.
And I think the body of Christ is better that way when you allow people relationships work better when you just understand. I think that's the main point of emphasis that we miss. It's about understanding each other's differences and celebrating each other's differences.
Right.
I think if we spend more time attempting to understand each other's differences, I'm not just talking about in a marriage, but I'm just talking about in friendships, as brothers, as brothers and sisters in Christ. If we just take more time of just trying to understand each other and celebrate the differences between one another, I think we'll be able to grow exponentially in our relationships. Even on our jobs, just understanding different personalities, I think it's essential. But overall, this was a fantastic conversation.
Absolutely.
Appreciate you coming hanging out with me.
Let me put this one plug in.
Oh, forgot the plug. Sure. My bad.
Got to tell you about this program called Shop Talk that we're doing. Shop Talk, a young men's mentorship program, 6 weeks. Each week, we meet at a local barbershop in Astoria, Queens. Every week we get entrepreneur, 9-to-5er, business person. They come in and they share their knowledge with these young men. They share their stories, what it took for them to get where they are in life, steps they've taken to achieve their goals. And they share these experiences with these young men, challenging them to choose different paths, better paths than what they're currently on. At the end of this mentorship program, one of the gentlemen or young men that are there, they get the opportunity to become an apprentice under the shop's owner, and also work towards getting their barber license. While they're currently mentees at the barbershop, they are open to getting a free haircut, learning getting some insight, and also hearing from law enforcement individuals and sharing their story as well. At the end of the program, that individual who chooses to become a barber later on in life will also receive a at-home barber station. We're not telling nobody about that, so that's a secret, but I'm gonna share it with you guys. Shop Talk, 2538 Astoria Boulevard. If you know anybody that's interested, any young men, troubled youth, at-risk victims of crime, bring them on down, and we'll love to meet them. Shop Talk, we'll see you there.